Hey guys, welcome back. This is your Vijay Vemula. In this series of videos on Azure Active Directory, this is second video which talks about multi-factor authentication. In case if you missed my earlier video which is part of this series, I'll give a link in the description of this video. Please go ahead and watch. Now in this discussion, we are going to look at what multi-factor authentication is, and then we'll try to understand where and how it can be used. We'll try to understand the licensing requirement around that. And then we'll quickly have a demonstration of multi-factor authentication for our users. So what is multi-factor authentication? As the name says, multi-factor, more than one authentication methods. So traditionally, we have been using usernames and password to authenticate ourselves with multiple apps that which we access. But having just username and password might not be the recommended authentication solution if you want to secure your accounts. If you want to have more security for your data and applications, the recommendation is to have more than one authentication methods. Now, if the user is prompted with an additional information of identification, apart from his user ID and password, then obviously we call it as multi-factor authentication. Then what is that additional authentication that which is needed, or what is that additional information that which is asked? Maybe you're asked to validate your biometrics, or maybe you're asked to punch in some code that which you get as an OTP, or maybe a code on your device, or maybe use some authentication apps and acknowledge the approval of your login. So Azure provides exactly the same methods, whatever I just explained, when it comes to multi-factor authentication. In any multi-factor authentication in general, the authentication methods are as follows. One is something you know, which is your username and password most of the times. That's what you know, your username and password, you punch it. That's the first authentication method. And the other authentication method, something you have. Maybe you get a notification to your email address, or maybe you get a notification to your mobile number, or to some app. So all these things under fall something you have category. And the third authentication method is something you are, which could be your fingerprint detection or face detection. All these fall under the biometric section, isn't it? So you can use a combination of these. Azure allows you to use first two methods, which is something that you know and something that you have. Then what are the licensing methods for my Azure Active Directory users to use multi-factor authentication? Is it enabled by default? If so, what features are there? If I am looking for some advanced features, then what are the options I have? So whenever you create your account, maybe a free trial account, the free trial account will have what you call it as multi-factor authentication. You can use it, but it has got those limited functionalities. Now here I am into this particular directory and you see the license model is free, Azure Active Directory free. I can still go and enable multi-factor authentication for my users. But as I said, the number of options that which you have here are minimal. When I say options, the features that which you get to use. You don't get some advanced features which you have in premium editions. So let us try to understand them a little bit. Now here I am on my Microsoft Azure documentation. If you look at the feature comparisons based on the versions of Azure Active Directory, when I say future multi-factor authentication features, of course you will be able to use MFA on free accounts. And then what is that you're getting? Mobile app as a second factor authentication. You can use your mobile app as a second factor authentication, which means that you cannot use your SMS notification to a mobile or a call to a mobile. Those options are not there here. The same free account for a specific user community who are part of global administrators. Within the free account for global administrators, you can configure the second factor authentication to a mobile as well, which is not there for the normal users in free account. Then what if I want to use a phone call authentication or an SMS authentication for a normal user? Then I have to go and upgrade it to either P1 or P2 license model. If you're already using Office 365 apps, I think you already got these options to go ahead and use it. But in case if you don't use Office 365 and you use Azure Active Directory and you need to go and enhance your license to either P1 or P2 to get these additional features. Now, what are those additional features you are getting when it comes to the multi-factor authentication on P1 and P2 license editions? Now you can track fraudulent alerts, you can get reports, the custom greetings for your phone calls, and some advanced features, trusted IPs, and so on, which is not there in Office 365 and free editions. So let us get back to our portal. What I'll do is I'll go and try to create a user ID. I'll create a new user ID. Let me name it as user3. And for this user ID, let me try it again. Some issues there. Let me switch the directory. I created a separate tenant for this demonstration. Right, so here I am in the user creation. Here I am in Contoso directory and I'm going to go to users and then I create another user with the name user3 and this is the fully qualified domain name. Let me copy this in a notepad. And then the first name, last name, username, and the password for this. I'll copy the password, right? And if you want to enable rest of the things, you can. Otherwise, you can go ahead straight away and create the user. So now I have this user ID, which is user3, isn't it? Which is user3. For this user, who is in the Azure Active Directory of free edition, I can go and enable multi-factor authentication for this guy. So I'll go to this multi-factor authentication options under the user section, and then I will be redirected to this pane. Sometimes it will ask for authentication. That's okay. So it didn't ask. You got this option, right? So you have to select this user and you need to enable multi-factor authentication. Now, when I click on enable multi-factor authentication for this guy, now you see this is enabled. But there is a problem here. If you want your users, if you want your users to be using this without skipping, you have to enforce it. Otherwise, this multi-factor authentication is an optional, configuration for your user. I want to go ahead and enforce it. Okay, so let me go ahead and enforce multi-factor authentication for this user. So now what it means is for this guy, user 3, the multi-factor authentication is enabled. Whenever this user logs in next time, he will be asked with some configuration details, and then he has to log off and re-log in to kind of use the multi-factor authentication from there on. Let me quickly show you that. So I log into a private browser mode and I'll try to hit, I'm accessing this portal.azure.com, and let me copy this username and password, sign in. Now it clearly says, if you see this message, help us to protect your account. Microsoft has enabled security default to keep your account secure. So obviously it is asking some additional information. Now I'll say next. Now what do you see here? It's asking you, to start getting the app, right? So Microsoft Authenticator is an app. Now on your phone, install this Authenticator app. So once you install the Authenticator app, then it is asking you to set up the account. And then when you set up the account on authentication app, you need to select work and school. You can try it out. You can download. There's a link here. You can go to Play Store and just search for Microsoft Authenticator app. So once you configure it for the school account, now what is the school account here? The school account is this. Okay, so now you should be configuring for this account. And then what it asks you is, it asks you to scan this QR code. I already got authentication app on or authenticator app on my mobile. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add this account. Okay, so I'll add this account using QR code. I'm scanning it. Now in some time you see this authentication account is added successfully on my mobile. Now you should be able to navigate to the next section, and I got a pop-up on my mobile to approve this authentication. I'll say approve and you will be in, right? You will be in. Alright, so your notification is approved and say next, and then it says that great job, you have successfully set up your security info, then continue, isn't it? Now you are done with the configuration of your, what do you call it, as authentication app, and then because I am logging for the first time, it will ask me the user credentials and a reset of the default password. Right? So I'm in. Now what I'll do is I'll log off once and try to re-log in and show you what's going to happen. I mean, when I log in next time, it should be asking me again multi-factor authentication because we enabled it, isn't it? So select the user, put in the password, and click on sign in. Now my app should get an approval request. There's an approval request and I did hit the approve option and then I should be in, isn't it? I am in. Right, so for your normal users, you can enable this even if you have a free trial license, even if you are using a free edition of Azure Active Directory, you can enable multi-factor authentication, but it works only with app authenticator app. Now, if you have a users who are, let us say, global administrators. Now, who are global administrators? Global administrators are the users who got what you call it as full control or full privileges on your Azure Active Directory. Or you may have a few other users who let me try to. Okay, I'll try to give that link. Maybe what are those groups for which you can see it, right? Azure Active Directory free and for global administrators, right? So global administrators accounts only. I think it's only for global administrators account. Anyway, I'll check that once and then maybe I'll try to give that link for you under the description section of this video. Now for global administrators, even if you have a free trial account, you get these additional options, isn't it? You can configure mobile and so on. Let me show you that. I'm going to go and create another user and I'm going to go and add the new user, which is user 4, which I'm creating. And what we do is we'll go and add this user 4 to global admins group, which means that he is a super user, isn't it? So let me copy the password and create the user. Once the user is created, I'm going to go and add this user to global admin role. Now remember, global administrator is the user account which has got access to manage entire Azure Active Directory environment. Okay, so let me go back. I'm seeing some error here. All right, so this seems to be working now. So I'll select global admin, say add, right? So now your global administrator account is, this user ID is added to global admins. Now this guy has got access to manage all aspects of Azure Active Directory. Now I want to enable multi-factor authentication for this guy now. So let me refresh this page. I should be seeing account 4 here, right? So I'll go and enable and I'll enforce. Okay. Now, so let me log in with this account now. Okay, so let me log in with this account now. Let me sign out from this. And this time, add another account and pick the user that which you created. And you can go with the password. Right, so it asks the same question. In order to protect your account more, we want to capture some additional information, or rather you need to configure it. So I'll say next. Now how many options you are seeing here? You see it, one is app, second one is phone, which was not the case for a normal user without global administrator, isn't it? So now let us go ahead and set up the app authentication. Right, let us go ahead and set up the app authentication again. I'll say next. and I'll scan the QR code. I'm going to go and add another account in the same app. I'll select work and school, scan QR. Now, yes, this account is added. I'm saying next. And I got a notification on my app to approve the sign in. And then I did it. And it should be navigating to this next option. Yeah, right? So Microsoft Authenticator is successfully set up. Say next. Now then, it is asking you the second authentication. Now you can prove who you are by texting a code to your phone. What phone number you would like to use? Maybe I will use my own phone number. Right. So this is my phone number, and I am saying next. Then there should be a validation that should happen here as well. I should be getting a code to my mobile. Yes, I did. And what I am going to do is I am going to go and enter that. So it should validate, and then yes, your SMS is verified and you got in successfully. Now, great job. You have successfully set up your security information. One is phone number, the second one is authentication app. Now we are done with the setting up of our, what do you call it, as multi-factor authentication for this. Now remember, we enforced this, isn't it? We enforced this. Otherwise, user, for user it's an optional. I'm resetting this password because we are logging for the first time, right? So right, so here are in. So let me log out with this user, user 4, and sign in again. And let us see what does it say. I'm getting into this using user 4, enter the password. Now, so the first authentication method, it is prompting me to accept, what do you call it, as the approval request. I approved it on my mobile and then say yes. Okay, so now it asked me only a single authentication method, isn't it? So you can enforce, I think, both of them by using some policies or whatsoever, but you can go ahead and configure your multi-factor authentication for users even you have got a free trial subscription. So you have two users you tested. One is a normal user which gets authenticated only, what do you call it, as by using authenticator app. If you're a global admin, then you can configure both. Now the next option that what I would like to quickly show you is, let me change this directory to my default directory. And if you go and look at the options, if I go to Azure Active Directory here, and a different subscription it is, sorry, in a different directory. Now this directory has got Azure AD P2 licenses. Now, if you got P2 licenses, you should be able to perform all these activities. I would suggest go and explore these ones, but you will be able to get, what you call it, as you will be able to use all these features. Now one quick thing I would like to show you is I'll create another user here in this, maybe in this new subscription, which I'll call it as user 5 anyway. In this directory I'm creating user 5. I'll copy this user the user ID is different for this because it's a different directory, right? Username, and then let me copy the password, right? Go ahead and create it. Now what I'll do is I'll enable multi-factor authentication for this guy as well, user 5. Where is this guy? Yeah, user 5. I'll enable and enforce, right? I'll enforce. Now let us try to get into Azure portal using this new user ID, which is user 5, right? So let me pick that. Now remember, here you got P2 licenses, okay? I'm just trying to show the difference, how things will be. Now I'm getting into this. I was asked more information. Now here you have a different view now because you got premium licenses. Now you got three options here: authentication phone, and then which means that your mobile for authentication, and then your office phone authentication, and of course you can also configure your mobile app. Now in the mobile app, you can configure receive notification, or you should be receiving a code which you will be punching in. Now based on the licenses that which you have, right? So now since you got a P2 licenses, you're seeing all these three options here, which was not the case in the free account. And there was again difference between free account with a normal user, free account with global administrator, right? That's all I have. Hope you got something out of it, and we'll meet again with another video sometime later. Bye for now. Thank you.